No, I'm thinking about maybe doing a homecoming party for him in Dallas. I mean, imagine if we can put together a Spence Vergil fight in Dallas Stadium.
Vergil Ortiz Jr. and Errol Spence Jr. in Dallas Stadium?
What?
I'm actually not mad at that. But I do have one condition that has to be met before we have this fight. Stay tuned to find out.
If I tell you I'm good, probably you will say I'm boasting. But if I tell you I'm no good, you know one line.
Yo, what's good, Boxing Talk family? It's your boy, Dr. Boxing Talk, back for another YouTube video. Banger, man. Yes, sir. Yes, man. I don't know what time it is. The doctor's in the house, man. So check this out. As you can see, you know, Oscar De La Hoya has dropped the fight that he wants to come into fruition next for Vergil Ortiz. And he wants none other than homegrown Texan Errol Spence versus another homegrown Texan in Vergil Ortiz.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
I think this is a good fight in theory, but I want to talk about some things that may have led to this fight. You know, last time we saw Errol Spence, he got demolished, destroyed, beat from pillar to post against Terrence Bud Crawford.
Back comes Crawford with the jab. Down goes Spence. And here comes Spence, though, as Crawford. And down goes Spence. Seventh. A big shot. Down goes Spence.
And in my opinion, there's no shame in that, right? Terrence Bud Crawford being a phenomenal fighter, all-time great already, you know what I'm saying? And they were both at the top of the sport. Both of them were on the pound-for-pound list at the time that they clashed. So with that being considered, you know, if Vergil Ortiz fights Errol Spence, it'll be another opponent that they have a commonality with facing, you know. Vergil Ortiz fought Israel Madrimov, and so did Terrence Crawford before him. So Spence and Vergil Ortiz's all Texas showdown. Hold on. Before y'all brainiacs say, oh, Spence was not from Texas.
You dumbass.
Yes, I know he was born in New York, but he fights out of Texas, man. He's from Texas. So as I was saying, before the all-Texas showdown between Ortiz and Spence happens, you know, that's a little build-up right there. You know, it's two opponents that they have in common with Terrence Bud Crawford. And I will always say this. I know Oscar De La Hoya is a butt of many jokes, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, he be doing some crazy stuff, but the golden boy, who occasionally likes golden showers, he needs to be respected, right? Because he is a hell of a fighter, Hall of Famer, you know, and he's a legendary fighter. We need to put some respect on his name. And one thing I like about him is that he always gives Terrence Bud Crawford his just due. He always gives him his respect and says, hey, man, you know, Terrence Crawford is a phenomenal fighter, you know, which he is. And he did pick Spence to beat, he did pick Terrence Crawford to beat Spence, you know. Granted, he did think Crawford would win by decision. You know, there's no shame in that either, because I think we all thought it would be a close fight, but it actually wasn't. You know, he still picked the correct person to win, and he always gives him credit. You know, he's not like these goofies that try to make it seem like Terrence Crawford only fought Errol Spence.
You dumbass.
No, he acknowledges that he fought other Hall of Fame top caliber guys like Sean Porter, like an undefeated champion in Victor Postol, you know what I'm saying, like Kell Brook, and like so many others that fills Terrence Crawford's resume, you know. So I do respect that, and I do think that this will be a good fight. However, what I think is contingent on how Errol Spence comes back and looks. I think that he has to get a tune-up. And if he doesn't look good in that tune-up, then he has no business fighting Vergil Ortiz or any other top contender, because I think that it would just be bad for him. You know, he's coming off of a beatdown and a long layoff, and those two things, one of those two things is never good. But when you have both of those things, that's definitely troublesome, you know. So it's good for us to see how he looks before we throw him in there with a major contender or interim champion like Vergil Ortiz, you know. But throughout the interview, when he called for the match between Errol Spence and Vergil Ortiz in Texas, I thought he said all the right things, man. Shout out to Oscar De La Hoya. However, he did kind of slip up too when he started talking about Zepeda and saying, hey, man, you know, Zepeda wants to be a top fighter.
That William Zepeda wants, you know, is the Shakur Stevenson, the very best. I mean,
Bullshit! 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 Bullshit!
No, he doesn't. Like, Zepeda was the only undisputed mandatory for all the sanctioned bodies, but he didn't elect to go for a championship fight.
That's a fact, ain't it? Ain't it? I did.
So he literally does not want to fight the top competition. I don't care what anybody says. However, outside of that, I understand that Oscar De La Hoya has to say these things because he's his promoter, right? So we get it, right? And another thing that I feel like he had to say was that Vergil Ortiz beat Madrimov in a more convincing fashion than Terrence Crawford, and I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think that Terrence Crawford and Israel Madrimov had a very close fight, a competitive fight, but it was at Terrence Crawford's debut at a new weight class against an undefeated champion, you know? And while it was a struggle, it was a very close fight. Like I said, I don't think anybody in their right mind had Terrence Crawford losing that fight, no matter how close it was. I think that Terrence Crawford was a clear winner. However, with Madrimov and Vergil Ortiz, a lot of people, including myself, scored it 7-5, 115 and 113 in favor of Madrimov. Now, I'm not mad at Vergil Ortiz winning because Vergil Ortiz deserves all the credit he could get for that fight, because that was a good fight. And in addition to that, on my scorecard, I had 2 swing rounds. So if I gave both those swing rounds to Vergil Ortiz, then he would have won. You know what I'm saying? So I had no issue with this, with Vergil Ortiz winning at all, because it was a close fight that honestly could have went either way. But it was a close fight. And with that being said, it could have went either way. So there's no way that Vergil Ortiz beat Madrimov in a clear fashion that Terrence Crawford did, which is what Oscar De La Hoya said. But again, that's his fighter. That's what he's supposed to say, you know, so I'm not mad at it. All in all, I love for this fight to happen, Vergil Ortiz and Errol Spence, but it is contingent on the fact that Errol Spence gets a tune-up in between, and we can see where he's at, because Errol Spence is a Hall of Fame fighter already, and we don't want to see them get battered and bruised.
Spence hurt again. All right, hook that wobbles him. Spence might be going down again, and this one is over.
Errol Spence is a Hall of Fame fighter already, and we don't want to see him get battered and bruised unceremoniously. You know, I think that's unfair to his outstanding legacy, and he deserves to get a tune-up. But you know, Errol Spence, he calls himself the king of no tune-ups, right? He just wants big fights. But I think that somebody in his team needs to coerce him to go to a tune-up, just so we can make sure that he could take care of himself in the ring, because we don't want to see these older guys and girls go in there and fight too long and then, you know, suffer the consequences, which are major, because this is a brutal sport. You know what I'm saying? But y'all let me know what y'all think about that. I think this fight would be a go. I think it would be dope. And Vergil Ortiz definitely needs a lighter fight. You know what I'm saying? So even if Errol Spence doesn't get a tune-up and they throw him in right there with Vergil Ortiz, he kind of deserves it, because Vergil Ortiz had 2 difficult fights back to back, and Serhiy Boachuk, Israel Madrimov. You know, so going with Errol Spence, it is kind of taking a soft touch. But if Errol Spence can look good in a tune-up, then this fight in the future will look even more respectable, in my personal opinion. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that. Don't forget to smack that like button, but most importantly, remember, with God, we can do anything. Without God, we're nothing. The doctor's out. Peace. From the hood to college, both worlds they had to meet. 6 degrees between us, so cold we're about to freeze. But we're Florida boys, hot takes, we bring the heat. We're moving the culture, the engineers to the streets.